Hi everyone. I'm going to give people just about another minute or so to join, and then we'll get started. So hold on for just a second. All right, we should be good to go. My name is Chris Day. I'm the Director of Cloud Mobility here at Business and Decision. Office 365 is one of the many things that fall under my practice, and today we're going to be talking about Exchange Archive management for Office 365. So we're going to be doing a lot of talking about the Exchange Online archiving. First, we're going to get into some of the features of the archiving itself. I guess the biggest feature when we talk about online archiving is the unlimited space. This is a big thing within Office 365, a big push that Microsoft's making, and just kind of taking space out of the equation for everyone. The cap, they do have a soft cap. It is at 100 gigs, but every time that that needs to be raised, it can be raised in 25 gig increments to basically an infinite amount of space per mailbox. Instead of having to, buy several hundred gigs of space or several terabytes of space for your on-premise SAN, it can really help, save some of that cost around that. So, if you're using Office 365, you probably have a 50 gigabyte inbox. Then along with that, you've got another 100 gigs of archive space to start out with. That can then be brought up in 25 gig increments. Up to infinity, basically. The other nice thing about Exchange Online archiving, I'll show you guys just an example of what it looks like here in a second, is it does provide anywhere access. What we mean by that is you can access it whether you're in OA or Outlook. Unlike PSTs in the past, we'll talk about PSTs in a little while. It does move with you. It is server based, so you don't have to worry about making sure you've got 10 different copies of all your PST files everywhere. You do see it just like you would see a regular mailbox within Outlook and Outlook Web Access. It also meets eDiscovery and litigation hold requirements. So all your litigation hold that you're currently doing on your Exchange server does work within the archive. So all the archives are subject to all your eDiscovery and litigation hold requirements. It also gives some users that we'll talk about in a little while access to control some of their own discovery and archiving techniques. It does help you meet your long-term retention requirements. I know lots of companies out there have lots of requirements around how long they need to retain their email for. Some are 2 years, some are 18 months, some are 7 years. Those could all be met using the online archive by putting in archive rules that will move mail out of your inbox into your archive, let's say every 60 days. And then if you wanted to put archive rules in that did a hard delete at 7 years, that's all possible using the online archives, and you can manage that all on the administrative end on the server side. Another big benefit to Exchange Online archiving is the storage cost. By having that unlimited storage for a nominal couple dollars a month fee per user, you are able to get unlimited space. That's a big deal. It may not be as fast as some of the having it directly sitting on your 15K SAS SAN or your fiber SAN, but it's still, people don't usually realize that it's fast enough. I've never had any speed issues with it at all, but it does help really lower that cost and also move from that capital expenditure model when you're buying a SAN to a more operational expenditure model where you're paying a monthly usage fee. Again, as I alluded to earlier, end users can pick from a set of different administrator-defined policies if you have several policies that your company's using, and you want to have some flexibility around your policies. That can all be done. So let's just take a quick look at what the actual screen looks like when you're when you see it. So if you notice here, the part I've got highlighted is where your online archive is. And it would look almost exactly the same in Outlook. This is a screenshot of OWA. It looked the same in Outlook, where you can see that it looks just like your inbox. So it's just a different inbox that sits right under your current regular inbox, where it keeps all of the stuff. You can add folders. You can do whatever you want, just like you would do anything normal within Outlook or Outlook Web Access. Let everybody take a quick look around that. So yeah, it looks pretty much the same. PST management. So I know this is probably one of the biggest issues in most of the organizations that I deal with and that a lot of my engineers deal with. Really taking control of the personal archives. PSTs over the years have probably been a headache for everyone when you talk about litigation. They end up everywhere. They're taken up. They're all over network storage. You don't know. You can't have any. You just can't. You don't know who's had it, what's been done to it. They're all over the place. They're just hard to deal with. With online archives, it does give you the ability to truly do litigation hold and eDiscovery within there, because you're not having to go round up all these PST files off people's laptops. It's not taking up all that needed storage on your network drives. I've seen terabytes of network storage being taken up by PST files because people will have 10 different copies of them. Then they try to mount their PST files from the network, and if you're mounting a 10 gig PST file from the network, it's going to slow your network down. So, there's a lot of really good reasons to start getting rid of some of these PSTs. Corruption being another one. I don't know how many times everybody's dealt with corrupt PST files, but that can just be really complicated, especially when you have an executive sitting at your desk staring at you while you're trying to uncorrupt their PST file. It's never fun. And then just the complicated recoveries. We don't all have some sort of desktop software to back up every desktop in our organization. A lot of people's desktops are kind of their responsibility. They try to back it up to a thumb drive, and then it goes somewhere else. You don't know where your data is going. Trying to recover those PSTs can always be a nightmare. That seems to be one of the biggest issues we run into when dealing with them, is that you're trying to, find them for one, then try to recover them for two, and you don't know which copy is the good copy, because maybe they've got 3 corrupted copies and 1 good copy. It just turns into an absolute nightmare, and that's where having your online archives that feel a lot to an end user like a PST file. They look, for all intents and purposes, like they're mounting their PST file, which they're used to. And they can see it right there. Instead of having to do shortcuts or stubbing or anything else, it's right there like they're used to using their PST file. It just lives on the server side, and it gives us administrators lots less heartburn, because we can discover against it. We can do easily restore all that good stuff. The way you can get PST files to the online archives, Microsoft actually makes it, I wouldn't say easy, but it's not. But they at least give you a tool to do it. The PST capture tool, what that'll do is it will actually go out and scan all your network drives or computers, or just if you have them in a folder, you can point them there, and it'll take those PST files and upload them to your Exchange server or your Office 365 online archive. It can be a slow and arduous process, because it does, it's kind of an item-based thing. So the more items you have in your PST, the longer it's going to take. What I've done in the past is spun up multiple machines to help take care of some of that. So you can do 3 or 4 streams at the same time, help gain some efficiencies there when you're trying to do it. Like I said, it can be arduous. It can be a really kind of time-consuming process. The nice thing is, though, if it's done right, it'll actually match up the PST to the correct mailbox with some automated logic it has built in. It's a nice tool for what it is. It's not. It is going to take you a little while to use it, but it will get the job done after a while. So if you're already invested in an archive solution, there is some potential to migrate. I know a lot of people are, and I'm actually going to put some voting up. Let's see, for everyone to see and vote on, to see what current archiving solutions different people are using. And there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of ways to migrate the ones that are out there. A lot of the times, most of us are either going to have Source One, Enterprise Vault's another big one, or just doing it the old-fashioned way with PSTs. There's a good amount of migration methods out there. I would say there's probably 3 that are workable to some extent. The first one is to dump all of the archives to PST files. By dumping them to PST files, we can then use the PST tool to update the inboxes or the archive mailboxes. Now, that's probably going to be the slowest way. You do have to stop archiving for a while. It's probably going to take you the longest, most likely take you several months to get the PSTs moved up into the archive. But it is possible. It all depends on what your eDiscovery times are, how you want the provenance of the files to get there. So if it has to stay in a certain state for eDiscovery, if you have to be able to prove that it was kept in a certain fashion, then that's probably not the best way to go. I'm going to skip over the middle one to talk about rehydration into the inbox. That's probably the next most logical way to do it. By rehydrating into the inbox, just puts all the mail back to where it was. Sometimes you'll be left with shortcuts in all the mailboxes. That can be scripted to take away. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. That's probably one of the easiest routes, because then when if you migrate your inbox, like let's say up to 365, then it's already there. Or if you just rehydrate it back in, you can use the automated archiving rules to go ahead and archive the stuff out of the inbox. Let's quickly talk about third-party tools. So there's quite a few third-party tools that probably a lot of people aren't aware of out there. They do a good job of specifically moving archive from one archiver to another. It's not just based on, let's say, Source 1 to Office 365. I mean, there's Source 1 to eVault. They do a lot of that stuff because it kind of all works the same way by going into the API, taking the messages out, shipping them up to the cloud or to another archiver. Like I said, they work great. There's several out there. The ones I'm familiar with are Transvault and the Nuix software. Nuix tends to be a little better in certain situations because it doesn't use the API to access the mailboxes. It does more of it has its own native way of reading the files within, let's say, Source 1 or eVault and migrating parsing all that information itself, so it doesn't have to take all the streams and do it item by item. Because sometimes, no matter what you're dealing with, whenever you're dealing with an archive migration, it will take time, because what you have to remember is it's got to move basically message by message up to the cloud. There's just, because you're going from one platform to another, so it's not like you would take one large file and move that 3 gigabyte file up to whatever you need to do. And that would be the same for anything. You basically are moving things email by email. So it definitely takes a long time to get some of that stuff up there, and that's unfortunately part of the game we play. Now there are ways to make it slightly faster. You can work with your SourceOne or eVault reps. There are some ways around that. Also, the tool sets that can be tweaked a little bit to make the process a little easier. Potential migration issues. There are some definite migration issues when you start talking about migrating any archive solution to another archive solution. One of the biggest ones is if you are archiving calendar items, most likely when you rehydrate back, there are going to be duplicate calendar items put back. So all the old calendar invites will be brought back when the archives are put back into place. So that's why a lot of times it's not necessarily recommended to archive calendar items if you don't have to. Also, deleted mail is reappearing in the inbox. So if you're doing any kind of eDiscovery, legal hold, any of those kind of things, the user may end up having emails they deleted be brought back because maybe that user was on legal hold. So that's definitely something that should be thought about as you go to migrate. Also, the storage overhead. A lot of times it does require an on-premise server to rehydrate back into. So and sometimes it requires all the space that the archives currently take up to be able to rehydrate. So keep that in mind as you go through these migrations, that there is going to be some space requirement to get things out of the archives, and it also might take some hardware to do that. A lot of the times, the companies that will help with that offer the third-party tools will sometimes leave servers just for these specific purposes. So something to think about. Also, sometimes during a migration, the shortcuts don't get deleted. It would be that can all be scripted. I kind of mentioned a little bit of that earlier. That can all be scripted to have the shortcuts removed. So it's none of this is a deal breaker, but it's important things to realize so you make sure you're setting the proper expectations with your user base as you're going through these migrations. It's not necessarily a fun migration, but once you get there, it can be a lot better. All right. So this is my final slide. This is kind of a shorter webcast than I usually do, but I think it's important even though there's not tons to talk about when we talk about archiving. It's definitely an important topic. So this is, I know a lot of people out there have already made a large capital investment in maybe Exchange 2010, maybe Exchange 2013. Still would like to look at using an online archiving solution, and that is possible. Basically, it's the same way that you would set up an Office 365 hybrid coexistence. The cloud coexists with your 2010 or 2010 SP3 or 2013 server. It allows you to have that online archive in the cloud while keeping your mailboxes on-prem. It's all completely transparent to the end user. They can't tell if their online archive lives on your on-premise server or in the cloud. It looks exactly the same as what I showed earlier. You can purchase online archiving only plans. I'm not sure currently on the price. That's been changing a bit lately, but there are a couple dollars a user per month with that unlimited archiving, which can really help you save on some of those storage costs around not having to go out and buy a new SAN or any of that other stuff. So that's really all I've got for today. Like I said, it's a shorter webcast than what I usually do. I'm actually going to be putting together a blog post on our blog about archiving in the next couple weeks. So look out for that, and hopefully I can answer some of your questions if you guys have any. I know some people will be watching this webcast after the fact since we had a little bit of a timing issue. So if you have any questions, please let us know, and I would be happy to try to answer them in the blog post. So for right now, does anybody have any questions on archiving? No questions at all? Hopefully I explained some of it. Like I said, feel free to email us. I'd be happy to answer questions in the blog. I know there's a lot of questions out there on this subject, and it's a fairly kind of vague topic a lot of times that I think gets looked over. So again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll stick around for about the next 5 minutes to answer questions. Let me know. I saw we had another person just join. Kind of a quick talk today. Please feel free to rewatch the video on our Bright Talk channel. And I'm going to be doing a blog post in the next couple of weeks on archiving. So if you have any questions, shoot them over to B&D, the B&D email. I'll be happy to try to answer them in the blog. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. Thanks everybody for joining.